Hello, welcome to our Star Wars podcast. We don't have a name for our podcast, or we don't have usernames or anything, but we are planning on doing a few podcasts for different things that we really like. And the first one is a review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. So, of course, because this is a review, we're doing spoilers, so spoiler warning. So let's introduce ourselves.
You want to go first?
Sure. So my name is Joe. That's all you need to know right now.
And my name is Jason, and again, that's all you need to know right now.
We might come up with cool username or nicknames or something, but we couldn't think of them on the spot. So right now we'll just use kind of our names.
Are they our real names? Who knows?
Who knows? We could just be names we like or names we don't like.
My name could be Frank for all we know.
Yeah.
All right. First thing we want to talk about is just our brief history with Star Wars, just so you guys don't think we're crazy big
two random
movie critics or two random guys.
We are two random guys.
We are two random guys. Yeah. So I'm Jason. Yeah, my history with Star Wars is I'm 26. I grew up watching the original trilogy and loved them, and I saw all the prequel trilogies when they came out, and I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I'm not a crazy big fan. I've never really read any of the books. I played some of the video games, like Knights of the Old Republic. So most of my Star Wars knowledge just comes from the movies in general, and a few of those kind of video games. I don't think any of them are canon or anything, but they're interesting and I like them. But I'm a huge fan of the series. But yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable in terms of all the extended universe and lore and all that stuff. And yeah, like I said, never read any of the books or anything. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, as for me, I am a fan of Star Wars. I've always liked it. I've always liked the universe, the world, all of that. I don't think I'm quite as big of a fan as Jason is, but I still enjoy it. And I think I've seen all the movies fully. I've definitely seen A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. I don't really remember too much about Return of the Jedi, though I'm pretty sure I've seen it as well. So I'm more foggy on the original trilogy, although I know all the important things that happen. I did, of course, see the prequels as well. I saw them when I was a kid, so I think I'm a little more forgiving about them because I haven't seen them in a long time. I'm not super critical. I'm just not super critical as a person in general. I think I'm more accepting of things, in general. I can see flaws. But anyways, yeah, so I thought the prequels were fine when I saw them, although I do understand that they're kind of awkward. And then, so I played a few of the Star Wars games. I haven't read any of the books, I do consider myself a fan, but I don't think I'm that big of a fan. So I'm just a random dude who likes Star Wars. That's all there is to it, I guess. All right, so we'll start with just to get things going. Of course, this episode is focused most of all on The Last Jedi. So we're just going to start with our first initial impressions of the movie. We both saw it together a few weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. 2 or so weeks ago, yeah.
2-3 weeks ago, I think now.
Yeah.
My first impressions of the movie were kind of mixed. I did enjoy it. It was about a 2.5 hour movie, and I guess my main takeaway was the first hour and a half. First half of the movie was insanely boring, and basically just felt like a remake of Episode 5, 6 combined. However, I did really enjoy the last hour. I felt like that was really exciting. Did have a lot of things I was expecting in the movie, and I feel like that did help somewhat redeem in some part, the first half of the movie, but
okay.
At least that was my initial impression was that last part did help redeem it, but now kind of going back and looking back, having some time to digest everything, I think now I am more critical of the movie overall. But we're talking about just my initial reaction. I did somewhat enjoy it.
My very initial reaction was that I thought it was awesome. And I think we're going to get into this, but same thing with Jason, where it's the first part was not quite as exciting or amazing, and then the last part of it, or the last, hour or 45 or whatever, was awesome. There were a lot of really great parts towards the end. And so I felt when you're done watching the movie, what's most fresh in your mind, of course, is going to be what you just saw.
Yeah.
So I didn't think this movie, in retrospect, I have become a lot more critical of it, and I definitely don't love certain parts of it. But this was also a really long movie, and we'll talk about maybe did it need to be this long. Mm-hmm. But I think the fact that it was so long could kind of change the way you think about it one way or another, yes. Especially since the beginning of it is kind of a drag.
We both
You could say
there were things that could have been removed that wouldn't have really changed
Yeah.
the thing and helped with the pacing issues overall.
Probably guess what those are, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into it.
All right. So, anything else about impressions? You want to start with the juice?
I guess kind of our both first impressions was, or maybe one thing we'll be focusing on this movie is we like the second part, and does that help redeem the first part, or are there just too many flaws with that first part that it just brings down the movie overall?
Totally.
So, the first thing we wanted to talk about was we felt like we needed to quickly go over The Force Awakens and the issues with that one, and does that kind of bleed into this one? And so, the biggest thing that people, the biggest criticism of The Force Awakens was that it basically felt like a remake of Episode 7. Or Episode 7 felt like a remake.
Episode 7.
It was Episode 7. It felt like a remake of Episode 4, A New Hope. And that was my biggest criticism with the movie, too. I think if it was a standalone, like, if it was a brand new movie, that was the first Star Wars movie ever made, everyone would probably love The Force Awakens. But since you come into it already with watching the original trilogy and probably prequel trilogies and then watch Force Awakens, it feels more like a remake than a brand new saga in the trilogy, in the series. I feel like if they were to do a remake, it basically would have been The Force Awakens. I don't know your thoughts on that.
I mean, I do understand and recognize that The Force Awakens was very similar to, an older Star Wars film, and so it did feel like a copy of it in a lot of ways. I did like The Force Awakens a lot, and I did also think like, okay, I do want the second film in this trilogy to be, a lot more different, and it was. It definitely was. I think it definitely took a lot of risks. It definitely changed some things, for better and for worse. That's kind of all I'll say. So I think that the fact that this movie branched away from kind of an original blueprint more made it even more admirable because it took more risks. I don't know. That's kind of all I'll say for that.
Yeah. When I first saw The Force Awakens, I did not like it. But I was willing to... I had high hopes for Last Jedi and Episode 9 because I felt like, okay, well, Force Awakens had to be a remake to reintroduce people to the series and to help set up the other movies. And so I was willing to give it a pass as long as the other movies were different. And so I said it, as soon as I saw the movie, like, as long as Last Jedi doesn't start out on a nice planet, I'm willing to give it a chance.
But instead, it ends on a salt planet.
It does. But then when Episode 8 starts out, we get the same exact plot as Episode 5, that Empire has found their hidden base and they're having to evacuate, and they kind of evacuate in the same way. They have to disable the ship and then flee to light speed. The only difference is we don't have that exciting, cool battle. I don't know, I guess you could say that on Hoth. I guess you could say there still was an exciting battle there. But then as Last Jedi goes along, it's still... We were hoping it wouldn't feel like a remake, but that's kind of what we got. It felt like a remake of Episode 5, 6 combined for the first hour and a half up until that kind of like throne room scene. Big part of Empire Strikes Back was, Millennium Falcon couldn't go to light speed, so then they were just being chased by Darth Vader. And then they eventually escape, get to Bespin. Luke's off training.
Canto Bespin?
Canto Bespin. Get to Bespin. Luke goes off training on Dagobah with Yoda. And Yoda, first, refuses to train Luke for all of like 30 seconds. And then you get Last Jedi, and again, they escape that battle, but then for different reasons in Episode 5, they can't go to light speed. So I'll give it that there's different reasons they can't go to light speed. But again, you just get this huge, long chase scene without the asteroids, and then you get Rey going off to train with Luke, but instead of 30 seconds of his refusal, it's most of the movie.
Basically, from what you're saying, it's basically those same plot lines really stretched out. Because the chase scene is like a chase like hour and a half. Like,
yes.
Like almost the entire plot point
is based around that.
Yeah, for the whole Poe and Leia storyline in this movie is them being chased, like until they get to the salt planet, because that's where it all, I guess, comes to a climax.
As one commentator I saw on YouTube put it, is basically Mad Max in space. There
you go.
I thought that was a fair criticism.
And you are right that the whole the whole Luke and Rey, where he kind of originally kind of declines, and he does kind of take longer to come around, but he does eventually come around. I don't think it's that long, but still,
Yeah, I just felt like it was like
he had some milk to drink in the time.
That was That was a little awkward. I didn't enjoy that scene. You felt a little bit differently. you enjoyed that.
Okay,
part.
we're going there.
We're going there
now?
apparently
okay.
already. Okay.
Okay, so the drinking milk straight from the teats of a walrus. I called it a wombat.
Wombat?
I don't know what that is. Like, what is it supposed to be compared to? Well, anyways,
it was half walrus, half cow. That's the impression I got.
So there's a montage, of course, of Luke's, you could say, daily routine of him doing, his, as Rey's trying to convince him, she follows him around, kind of learns of his daily routine. And I don't know if this is something he does daily. It kind of seems like it.
Seems like it,
The animal seems welcoming enough, but...
both Luke and the walrus seem to enjoy it well enough.
He squeezes liquid. I mean, I'm assuming it's milk from I'm assuming it's teats of an animal. And he drinks it. But anyways, the point that we're talking about here is that I actually found that part a little... I laughed. I found that funny. And that's something that we kind of wanted to get into, was the humor of the film, and where a lot of it maybe didn't quite work. Personally, I did find that part in particular funny, just because my sense of humor is really kind of random and erratic and things that kind of just don't make sense. And so it was so out of nowhere, that part where he just like squeezes the milk and drinks it, and it's like green milk or something. And he just kind of like gives like a little, I guess you could say, a little smirk at Rey as he's drinking it. And I kind of thought that was a little funny, just because it was so out of place.
Overall, like, I wouldn't have minded it if it wasn't for that smirk he gave Rey. It was like, yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting. If anything, I might argue that maybe it was the smirk that made it more funny for me. Okay. So it's fun to have these differing opinions, but yeah.
That's just the part that made it awkward for me. He was just like, yeah, drinking, this is normal. And
it was really awkward and gross. Let's just
do another podcast where we talk about milking animals.
Point is, it's disgusting.
What animals can you milk?
That'll be our second episode.
That'll be our second episode. Maybe third, once you get a fan base. That way they sit through it.
Okay, so humor. I feel like you probably wanted to maybe go more because you had a stronger thought on this.
Yeah, I felt like they're almost trying to copy the Marvel humor. The humor we see in the Marvel movies. Just, I don't know, with what they call those little penguin things called the porg.
Oh yeah,
is that what they're called?
Porgs.
Porgs. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who thought of that name. Don't think it matters.
Where they're just like they're in the Millennium Falcon, or like Chewie's eating one of them, and the other ones are just kind of like staring at him. A lot of that humor I just kind of felt misplaced. I just feel like one of the biggest criticisms of Return of the Jedi was the Ewoks, and I just feel like they were it's like, oh, let's throw more of that in there.
These are like, you could maybe say these are the Ewoks or the Jar Jars of this.
I would say they're that bad because they're not a huge part of the overall plot. But I just feel like they're throwing them in there probably for like merchandising or just trying to get some quick laughs.
Sure.
Quick laughs. I don't really think it was necessary.
They don't add anything. I mean, I maybe as always, I don't hate. I did laugh at some of the part. I mean, I'll admit I thought they were cute. I'm sorry.
Well, their cuteness is not in dispute here.
But I did also think some of the parts of them were funny too, like the part with Chewie eating one. I do agree that they were not they didn't add anything at all. The movie could have gone on perfectly fine without ever seeing one of them. But of course, there's reasons for them existing, I'm sure, even though they weren't necessary at all. And that's a little annoying. And I do agree with people who are annoyed of their existence just because they exist just for they kind of exist for like more of a meta reason. Like they exist for the outside world to like, think they're cute and buy products with them. But there's no point for them to exist in the movie.
Yeah, like again, I feel like overall the tone of Star Wars should be more serious. It's okay to throw in like little jokes. I just feel like they try to throw in way too many that felt forced, and I feel like it kind of threw off the overall tone of the movie. Like there are a few moments I definnly love, like when Luke and Leia reconnect, and then he just kind of ignores 3PO, and like as he's walking out, he gives a little wink. Like I love that part. Or after all the AT-ATs, I think that's what they're called. They all unload a bombardment on Luke.
Yeah, and then he like brushes it
off.
I laughed at that part too.
I love that part.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that was really all the humor. Like it kind of just little moments like that, not just throwing in these random kind of animals and having them bring them along for the ride. I don't know.
Okay, no, I agree with you.
It was unnecessary.
And so quickly before we move on for this point, you compared it to the Marvel humor. So just very quickly, like what do you what do you mean like the Marvel humor? Like I know what you mean, but I just want like what like kind
I don't know if I can define it. Just I don't know. I just feel like in the Marvel movies they're always just trying to throw all these kind of like random jokes in there. that the overall tone of those movies isn't very serious at all. It's just kind of like this
Okay. Yeah, and
joking.
I
kind of thing.
agree with that. I just wanted to kind of conceptualize it, I guess.
We look at like the original trilogy, with the exception of the Ewoks. Like you don't really get that tone in there. So maybe I don't know. They're trying to adapt with the times, create it, but I would have probably preferred a little bit more tone of like the original trilogy.
Okay, so a quick question then before we move on. So do you think that type of humor works in the Marvel movies?
I think it does. Those movies aren't trying to be overly serious.
Okay.
Star Wars, I feel like overall probably has more serious plot lines than Marvel. They never, all their movies are like that, so it's not a huge deal. Whereas Star Wars, not all their movies are like that.
I think one of the criticisms that's very fair about the humor here is that it just kind of disorients the tone. Like the tone of this film in general, to some people, does seem less clear. It seems like I've heard people say that the tone is all over the place for this movie, and I could see that. I don't know if I personally say that's true. I mean, I understand that though. So yeah, any other thoughts on humor before we go?
No, and I also just want to say that a lot of this is just our kind of opinions, not super in-depth criticism.
Yeah.
Just we're not crazy big movie critics. We we see movies, we criticize them. That's about it.
This is our first time ever, like, actually, maybe you could say formally critiquing a movie together. I mean, we talked about movies and we've criticized stuff together, but this is our first time actually. Yeah, so it's fun. And
so now that we're 10-20 minutes into this thing and you're thinking, wow, this is all just these guys' opinion? Correct. You're correct.
That wasn't clear by the
fact that this is
just a podcast and a review. Yes. All right, so now we're going to, something we thought could help in lending itself to talking about a lot of the bigger points in this movie is kind of going through kind of individual characters.
Well, before we do that, there's something you want to talk about was
this?
And something I thought was a really good scene, and you want to talk to was episode 8. I thought was basically a remake of episode 5 and 6 up until the throne room scene.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And I thought that scene then did a good job of when Kylo kills Snoke completely, then going off in a new direction, and at that point no longer felt like a remake. It felt like it was doing its own new thing, and that's one of the reasons I felt like the last hour was great. Is I didn't know it was going to happen. I know you really enjoyed that scene too.
I would go as far as to say that throne room scene like kind of made the movie for me, just because it was so unexpected. And when I saw that scene for the first time, I was like in complete awe the entire time. I thought that was amazing. The whole entire time that Rey and Kylo are in that red room, like that's the best part of the movie to me. And I just thought it was the way that scene plays out is amazing. We'll probably go into more detail on their characters when we talk about them. But he kills Snoke. That's something you absolutely do not expect to happen. They fight together, which is awesome because it's cool to see that, right? These are two characters that are really struggling with these philosophies and ideologies, and just seeing them work together is cool, even if it's only for that moment, because obviously
brief moment.
After that, they kind of go their separate ways.
Well, the ship was blowing up at that point.
Oh yeah,
something?
They were about to. I mean,
escape.
If the ship hadn't blown up, one of them. I mean, it seems like they were about to, they were both trying to get the lightsaber, and well, it broke actually. I don't know what would happen if the ship didn't blow up.
I don't know. Yeah.
Anyways,
for all we know, they would have had a makeout scene, and got a very different movie.
Very different. But my bottom line is we'll get into these characters a little more in a little bit. But yeah, I thought that scene was amazing. Maybe I'm overhyping it because I also sometimes tend to overhype things.
We all overhype the things we like.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to other people.
I really just loved it. I can't even explain. Yeah, and that single moment, or that single, I guess, scene or sequence when they're in that red room from beginning to end, just my favorite part of the movie. And I thought that made a lot of what I liked about this movie. So with that being said, now we're going to, like I said, talk about individually some of the characters, and the first one we are going to talk about is, we'll probably just start with Luke. I mean, he's one of the most important, maybe most central characters to this movie, but definitely you could probably say the most central character to the entire
Star Wars saga.
Some could argue Darth Vader is the most central, but anyways, we're not going to go into that.
We're not going to go into that. That's an argument for another podcast. So Luke, he was a very, I don't know if he himself was a controversial character in this one, but his story arc in this one is very controversial.
Sure. Okay.
A lot of people thought that his actions in this movie were not in line with his character arc from the original trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll get into that more, but overall, I do kind of agree with that sentiment. I do kind of feel like they did almost assassinate his character a little bit. That's some of the
strong words.
I mean, that's not my words. That's what I've seen online.
If you think that, that's cool.
That's just what I'm gonna roll with.
That's our motto. If you think that, that's cool.
And a lot of you might think, oh, this is a butthurt Luke fanboy who,
and you'd be right.
You'd be right. Who didn't like his main character, not coming off in a good light. And I don't necessarily think that's true, just because I didn't mind, like in Force Awakens, they kind of assassinate Han Solo's character a little bit. He comes off as this absentee father, and I think that makes sense with his character. He's this kind of roguish smuggler guy. I don't necessarily think he'd be the best father figure. Okay. And so him coming off that way in Force Awakens totally makes sense with his character. Whereas Episode 8 now, we see Luke, who in the original trilogy was the only one who saw good in Darth Vader, a guy he only met once, and in that instance he got his arm chopped off, or his hand. Doesn't inspire a lot of faith. And you see him doing everything he can, even sacrificing his own life, possibly the life of his friends, to try to save him. And then fast forward to Episode 8 now, and you see Luke having thoughts about killing his own nephew, someone, I don't know, with Han Solo being an absentee father, maybe someone, and Luke training him almost like a son to him. And I don't know, one of the things is Kylo Ren struggles with the light and the dark. So when Luke senses some darkness in him, I don't think it would have been as strong as the darkness in Darth Vader. So for him to then
he was just a kid.
Yeah, he's just a kid. Obviously, he's still strong with light and the dark, so I don't think it was completely overtaken by the dark side. And so him to even think about it just doesn't make sense in terms of the overall movie. I feel like there are different ways they could approach it where it made more sense, but the way they did it, it didn't make sense to me that he would even consider it.
I do really agree with all this. I don't have too much counterplay to these points.
Well, duh, I said it. Obviously, I'm kind of like a big Luke fan, so I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I feel like there were different ways they could have approached it. Like, I thought an interesting way they could have done it instead was, instead of having Kylo constantly fighting between the light and the dark, that's why he killed Han in Episode 7, was to try to kill off the light side of him, but it didn't work, was to have Kylo just completely be overtaken by the dark side to the point where, like, he's unredeemable. Yeah. And then to have that be what Luke senses, to then be why he thinks about killing him for a second, then it would have been cool for Luke to be like, even though I sense that he's my nephew, almost like a son to me, I can't do it. And so maybe that's why he then goes off and lives by himself. He won't bring himself to fight against Kylo, against this almost son character to him.
Sure, yeah.
And he figures out Leia and the others can handle it, which is why he cuts himself off from the forces. He just feels that they can handle it, not that he doesn't care. I feel like that would have been a better story arc and would have made more sense overall than what they went with. We could have had the same overall effect, him not being there. Still achieves the same things, and it just makes more sense with his character arc from the original trilogy.
For me, I do agree with that. Again, I don't have too much counterplay to pose to these thoughts because I do agree. I thought it would help as well. All we get is like the whole thing with the Luke and Kylo Ren struggle, or really the Kylo Ren struggle in general, and his parental figures like Leia, Luke, and Han, and how he kind of breaks away from them and goes to, I guess, train with Snoke or whatever. Is like we don't get enough of that kind of background, and maybe we don't need it yet, but at some point we will.
They got one movie to give us all that background.
Yeah, I know, but it's like we hear, okay, well, Kylo was training with Luke to be a Jedi, and then he went to the dark side and started, went with Snoke or whatever. Snoke had influence over him, but where does that influence come into play? When does that come into play? How does it come into play? Like, how does Snoke ever come into Kylo Ren's life before he joins him? Like, is it just like this kind of like influence? Like, yeah, like how where's the meeting there? And I feel like that is important information. I think that could really help drive these storylines and these characters along even better if we
knew that.
Yeah. I was going to say that if we had gotten that sooner, or if we had gotten it at this point, because that's all we get is very vaguely, and I don't like the vague. I mean, you'll probably learn in these types of discussions, I don't like vagueness. The whole vague statement of, Kylo Ren, he was, torn between the light. I mean, that's such a cliche statement, and the whole notion of like Kylo Ren,
especially in the whole saga of Star Wars.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's so overused, and it can be done right even if it is overused. But here, it's like it just seems so again so cliche. Like, okay, there's this guy who he's tempted by the dark side, but again, why? What about this little kid made him tempted? Is it the fact that his parents weren't fantastic parents to begin with, or is there some big plot point that we're missing here? Again, in relation to like how he meets Snoke, like it just, to me, it's just like, okay, well, he was training with Luke. He was tempted by the dark side, and he went over to the dark side because Luke was going to kill him. But like, why was he tempted? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just all I'll have. And that's, I could have had that with Kylo Ren, but I have a lot to say about Kylo Ren. Yeah. I guess I'm not talking too much about Luke here.
No, those are all amazing questions. Some of those were questions I had, and we didn't even talk about that, but I'm glad we're going to talk about that now. Yeah, you're right. They mentioned in the movie that Snoke was the one who corrupted Kylo, but I mean, I don't know how old Kylo was when that happened, like 14, 15 or something.
It seems like it. They didn't say, though.
And all we know is that Kylo lived with his parents, and then he went off to train with Luke and the other Jedi. I mean, where does Snoke meet him? It corrupt him? Yeah, I mean, was he his babysitter growing up? Was he one of the other... Did Luke train 90-year-old dudes at this academy?
He was a late bloomer.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's something they'll explore in episode 9, but it would have been nice to have all this background information before, so we're not... Again, we don't know what's going on. And it just seems like these are plot holes more than things to be filled in later.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the last thing I will say about Luke for now is I like Luke as a character. I mean, who watching these films doesn't? But I enjoyed him in this movie. I think he gave a great performance. I do agree, and I am confused about the whole, why is he going to kill his nephew, blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense in the context of his character. But a lot of his other scenes in this movie were great. I think he played the kind of old... Oh, yeah,
walrus lover.
I don't know if there's a walrus. But anyways, I think he played an old, wizened, kind of troubled master really well. So I kind of enjoyed that. And I don't know. That's what I'll say.
And maybe that's kind of one of the biggest criticisms, too. I mean, or maybe not one of the biggest criticisms, but one of the things that felt lacking is... That's what we were expecting, that this big, wise Luke master of the Jedi Order. And instead we got a Luke who hated the Jedi, wanted to die, didn't even care that his friends were off dying, didn't really even have that strong feelings about Han dying. So he didn't really feel like a wise Jedi master, kind of like a Yoda from episode 5. We got this kind of weak, kind of shriveled old man who just really kind of disheartened with the world.
Sure. And I mean, I guess that wasn't the last thing I was going to say about Luke. I like something else you'll probably learn if we do more of these.
He's a creative writing, student, not student, he graduated, but
I like conflicted characters. I mean, that's always what's going to make the best characters in any media is conflicted characters, is internal conflict. And so I appreciate the fact that Luke, is disheartened by the Jedi. He realizes that, their way wasn't ideal and blah, 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 right? I like that. I like that aspect. It seems like maybe, I don't know.
I mean, I don't disagree with conflicted characters being for good stories. I just felt like the way they tried to conflict Luke didn't make sense with his overall character. It felt forced. Okay. Like everything else in this movie felt forced. I guess that's going to be our main criticism.
Okay, I like that. I mean, and then one more thing I'll say is I like the parallelism of Luke and Yoda to, maybe you could say wise Jedi Masters who failed and both went into hiding because of, you could say, their failures. That's something that people could say, could use as a criticism, but I liked the parallelism there.
Yeah. It just... I mean, since they're obviously rehashing 5 and 6, they could at least rehash the good parts instead of let's take like the most annoying one. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not annoying parts of 5, but like that 30 seconds for Yoda, doesn't want to train Luke. Let's stretch that over,
30 minutes,
an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just let him wallow in his sadness and his grief and his.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm good on that.
Again, I'm fine with him being conflicted. Just if we could be conflicted for like an hour less in the movie.
We should probably.
We can probably move on.
We could spend a lot more time on this.
Should we just skip to Kylo next, since we've already kind of
that's fine.
Kind of talked about him a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to say. Where do we start? Kylo Ren, conflicted. I think something that I think is good to look at with this character is, well, first of all, I really like Kylo Ren. I think I would say he's my favorite character in this trilogy.
Of course, I like conflicted characters. Like Kylo
Ren. But yeah, he's my favorite character in this trilogy, and I think that he's handled really well in this movie. Personally, I'd say. I don't know. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go?
I don't really have too many thoughts on Kylo. I mean, Force Awakens, I hated him as a villain. Just he seemed like a spoiled brat dealing with mommy and daddy issues versus a Sith Lord or a Star Wars villain.
I would say that that's the point, but I agree.
But maybe that's the point.
I think I can agree with people who are annoyed by the fact that he seems just like some emo dude, colloquially speaking.
We got a good Twitter account out of it, though.
Yeah, the emo Kylo Ren. Well, the thing with Kylo Ren is like, okay, what's going on with him now? Because a lot of this is what we've maybe seen before in these types of movies, where it's a character who's conflicted, being pulled between the light and the dark. Maybe in him it's more apparent. Because it's like, something that's interesting is people were saying in The Force Awakens, it's like, okay, well, Anakin was like maybe a good character who's tempted by the dark, whereas maybe Kylo Ren is like a bad character who's tempted by the light, perhaps.
Interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like he's maybe more in the middle in this movie. He kills Han Solo, and he thought that was supposed to completely level him up or something like that. He thought he'd get a lot of experience.
Give me some
for
dark
that.
side points.
Yeah, he thought he'd get a lot of dark experience, but he actually didn't gain really any because he ended up. I mean, as Snoke puts it out here, it ends up kind of like tearing up his soul or something, tearing up his heart or whatever, like that NSYNC song. But no. Anyways, so
nope.
So he thought that killing his father would like completely accomplish his dark side training,
kill all the light in him.
Yeah, but it actually makes him so much worse because it makes maybe he regrets it. I don't know.
As Luke says, strike me down and I'll be with you forever, just like your father. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's still really dealing with that, and he's really torn. He's a really erratic character and reckless. Like I think is a lot more impulsive. Like he killed Han Solo. I think killing Snoke, he probably had wanted to kill Snoke for the longest time. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, he like stands up to Snoke, like he gets really angry, and then Snoke like kind of shoots him down.
Right.
So it's likely he's been killing. It's likely he's been planning to kill Snoke for a long time, but he just
waiting
acted.
For the right
yeah,
moment.
he just kind of acted on that impulse there and did it. I don't know. Do you have anything?
I mean, I don't really have too many thoughts on Kylo. Either way, you're obviously the bigger fan, so I don't know if there's... I mean, I do feel like some character development is missing from him, kind of like we talked about before.
Sure.
Like, we don't know how he met Snoke, how he got influenced. We don't really know too much of his motivations. We know that he's struggling with the light and the dark. But like you said, that's kind of a big, cliche, vague thing.
Yeah. I just don't know where they'll go from here, because I feel like, okay, is he going to be redeemed? Is he going to be a quote-unquote fully good character by the end? Or is he going to be a fully bad character? Or if he is more in the middle by the end of the series... How will that be? Like, what will they do with? I just don't know.
And I think we had some different. What were your thoughts? Predictions for episode 9. What were you thinking was going to be Kylo's eventual story?
I feel like I would be fine if he ends up being more of a bad guy, more of a villain, because that would be interesting. Because it's interesting to see different things in media in a world where it's like so easy to see like the battle of light versus dark. So it'd be interesting if we have because he's clearly a protagonist. If we have a protagonist who is like almost wholly bad. Or quote-unquote evil, I think that'd be interesting by the end. I do think that the way that this is going is some sort of redemption. I personally think that he'll like die in some like heroic type of thing. I'm not saying I want that to happen.
Being a villain for most of the movie, then
yeah, I feel like that's where it's going, because
conflict that happens that he has to save someone.
Yeah, I mean you can't set up this pull between him and Rey, like her trying to change him, and then have nothing ever come of that. So there's definitely going to be something with that.
I don't know.
I just
Canto Bite kind of felt like that.
That is good. And your thoughts on maybe where he's going here?
Yeah, maybe kind of the same. Maybe this is just because, with my whole... I give you guys my opinion on what they should have done with Luke's story arc.
Yeah.
With Kylo Ren being evil. That's kind of where I'm still hoping they're going. Like, Kylo Ren... We already kind of got the redemption story with Darth Vader.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm kind of hoping that they kind of go with him kind of being fully consumed by the dark. This is actually a villain that they have to kill instead of someone they try to
And again,
redeem.
I would be interested in going something of that route as well. It's just I think that where they are going is more of what you expect.
Yeah.
But I hope they don't do what we don't expect, like the whole throne room scene where you don't expect really any of that. That the more unexpected. Well, I don't know.
It's at its best when it's unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
When you can't predict the exact stuff that's going on, like Force Awakens, if you knew it was going to be a remake, you could have sat there and predicted all the plot points up until a new Death Star. Sure. We want Episode 9 to be as unpredictable, and we don't want to know what's going to happen. We want it to be as unpredictable as possible.
Definitely. Any other thoughts on him? Because I have one more final thing to say. But
go ahead. Yeah.
So with Kylo Ren, I mean, this is just me kind of admiring more of this character. But with something that I liked about Kylo Ren is he seems to be like all about killing the past. I think it's cool to see a character who feels like the outer influences are kind of holding him down, maybe, and he feels like getting rid of them, even if it resorts to killing them, will help liberate him and move him forward. And so I like that he's kind of taking the initiative in this movie to like rise up as it seems like he's going to be like the supreme leader in the it seems like
that's what's setting up for episode 9.
It does seem like he'll be the kind of main central villain of the movie and like the leader of this whole order, which is kind of cool too, I guess. But the more interesting thing here is like he kills Han Solo, who is his literal father. He kills Snoke, who is, I guess, something of a father figure as well, because he kind of trained him as well and took him in.
Good point.
And then he tries to, I guess he kind of kills, he tries to kill Luke. He thinks he doesn't know Luke isn't real until the end. Right. But Luke does die, so it's like...
I guess you could argue he killed him in some
in some way, because like Luke... Yeah, well, we'll go into that. But in a way, he's all about killing these father figures, killing the past to let himself become what he thinks he was meant to be. And that's a cool thing. And he tries to get Rey to kind of step into that path as well. And she doesn't, but yeah, it's just cool to see that.
No, that's a really interesting point, because he kills, about him trying to kill the past, he kills Han Solo, his pull to the light. Maybe he kills Snoke knowing that was his pull to the dark. He's trying to kill off that influence. Luke is his pull to...
Yeah, I don't know if Luke... maybe his pull to something. That sounds kind of weird.
Okay. Yeah.
Not in that way.
He killed off his pulls to
and also, with Luke, I feel like he wanted to kill Luke more out of revenge, because he's a really angry person, and like Luke was going to kill him, and he never forgot about that.
As far as he knows.
Sure. And in all these years, he never forgot about that. And so, anyways, so he's killed all of his father figures in a way. And it's interesting to see what he'll become. I think that something that'll also be interesting is he'll be like the supreme leader or whatever, but he'll be even more like he doesn't have any guidance at all anymore. And Rey was going to be another source of guidance for him, but he kind of rejected her. So like he's going to be like, I think he's going to be even worse in the like as far as like he'll be so erratic and so reckless because he won't have any guidance. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I have no idea. With that being said, do you want to?
I can't even read that. I forgot what we put there. Oh, yes. Okay, we can go there.
It makes sense to go there.
Leia.
I think you have more to say about her. Let me just quickly, before you go, because he's probably going to go off.
Hey, I went on my tangent with Luke. You had your tangent with Kylo. We're even now.
He's on Leia. I think that her portrayal was fine. Yeah, it was good. It was cool to see her as like a very, big leader figure, of course. R.I.P. Carrie Fisher, right? But yeah, it was cool to see that. I'll probably agree with most of what you say, so we'll just let you say it.
I really don't have a lot to say. I don't know why.
Except well, there's one.
Everyone knows what's about to be said
with
here.
Leia.
With Leia. I like her overall in the movie. I have no problems with her. The only thing was the whole
sexual tension with Poe. I'm just kidding.
I never thought there was sexual tension with Poe, but that was not what I was going to say.
But now he's going to go write a fanfic about. Okay.
I don't write fanfics. I swear I don't write fanfics. Was that obviously the Mary Poppins kind of thing where she gets blown into space and then
flies back.
Just felt kind of weird. I don't know any of the extended Star Wars stuff, and I don't know, maybe a lot of the stuff we're discussing in this podcast is going to be explained in some Last Jedi book that's supposed to fill in all these plot holes. But I never really felt like flying through space would have been a force power. Jedi, they can run fast, jump really high, but you don't see them like flying on planets, so I don't necessarily feel like flying through space should be an extension of force powers.
What it's supposed to be, maybe, I could be wrong, is like her pulling herself to it. So it's not like her flying. Like it's like there's no gravity in space, maybe. So
I could see like if doing like a force push away, then that momentum takes her in, but that's not really what we saw.
I don't think if she were on the ground, I don't think she'd ever be able to do that. Well, I don't know. Anyways, continue if you have more to say.
Okay. I know Star Wars has kind of gone away with a lot, or Disney has gone away with a lot of the extended universe, saying it's not canon. So I don't know if before this point we never really got to know if she was a Jedi or not. The impression I got that she wasn't a Jedi or trained in the Force.
Sure.
I know in some extended universe and in books, like she does have Force powers, trained in the Force as a Jedi. So up until this point, I don't know if it mentioned whether she had or not. No. And so it just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere, basically.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree. She's obviously a central character to the series, to Star Wars as a whole. In this movie, she didn't have too much of like an arc or anything. I don't know that she needed one. I think a lot of these kind of older figures like Leia and I guess you could say Han, maybe, I don't know, these characters, maybe they should still have arcs, but she didn't really have much of anything in this movie. It was just kind of like she was there to kind of move other characters along. Maybe I would argue
help them with their character development.
Yeah.
Mostly Poe.
But yeah, I mean that's all I'll say about that.
I did like the scene, where she walks in and like Poe's doing his mutiny.
Okay.
And you're thinking that she's gonna side with him. At least that's what I was thinking. And then she just walks in and
that was also unexpected to me.
Shoots him.
What?
I like that scene a lot.
I was like, is she evil now? No, I didn't think that.
All right. Do you have any other thoughts on?
Not really.
Leia?
We'll see.
All right, we can go ahead and move on. Next character we're going to discuss is...
Another one he has a rant about.
I have rants, okay? I have opinions, and
all I do is grovel over characters I like, and all he does is rant over characters he hates. So.
We balance each other out.
Yeah, there you go.
Unless people really hate rants, in which case, I don't know why you're still watching this podcast for like 50 minutes in. But, all right, so Rey is the next character we're going to discuss. Overall, I do like Rey as a character.
I do too.
She's very likable.
Yeah. Good character.
Yes, good character. I thought, she does great as, a lead character like Daisy Ridley. I do like her overall. I don't know what your thoughts on her are.
This is really kind of out of nowhere, I like her a lot. I like the character. I like the actress. I'm okay with the whole her being strong and whatever. I'm okay with that. I mean, yeah, there are certain parts of it because that's one of the bigger things we're probably going to talk about in this discussion. Perhaps
I know why you pointed at me when you said we're going to talk about.
I just gestured, okay. Gestured generally, but I do think that there are some points where it's like, okay, well, how is she able to do that? But anyways, in this movie particularly, I liked her. One criticism that I have to say about Rey is that oftentimes she's also kind of talked about as being like this kind of middle ground kind of character where Kylo Ren is more evil, but he's conflicted with light, whereas some people say that Rey also is kind of conflicted in some ways. I don't know that I see that.
I didn't see that either.
Because some people talk about her potential pull to the dark side, and I don't know how or where that comes up because there are times where she seems pretty angry, and maybe that's it. But I don't know that I see any other times where she's like tempted by
the dark side
at all. She just seems like a well-rounded good guy, which again, as someone who likes conflicted characters, she's not I like her as a character, but I don't think she's the strongest that maybe she could be. Maybe they're not using the full potential there for Rey.
No, I agree. Because I mean, this movie's is obviously trying to set up like she's conflicted. Luke makes the comment that when he's training her with the Force for the 30 seconds he actually does train her, that
and it's just her sitting on a rock,
and again Luke throwing in some dumb humor. Oh my God, you're so strong.
Oh, yeah. Where he's like, do you feel that?
It was funny, but I hated it. It was funny, but I hated it.
I didn't hate it. I like that part where he's like, that's the Force, and she's like, oh, I feel it. Okay,
oh my God, it's so strong with you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I know like Luke mentions that she doesn't try resisting the dark side at all. Like she feels the dark presence there. She doesn't try resisting it at all. So it's obviously trying to set it up that she is this conflicted character. But again, you don't see that in her personality. She just seems like an overall good person. You don't see her doing any dark side stuff or having any dark side thoughts. She does go to that cave,
that big black hole. She's tempted by the hole, but like, okay, what?
Yeah, I mean, you see Luke in Empire Strikes Back go off to that dark presence on Dagobah and fight himself or whatever it is supposed to be.
I mean, with her, the biggest drive for her seems to be like, who is she? Like, who are her parents, and why does she have the Force or whatever? Do you have the Force or?
Everyone has the Force. It's much stronger.
Well, I mean, is that like the correct verb? Like, have the Force, or is it like whatever? Who cares? We're not getting into the semantics of this. But yeah, anyways, the
Force is strong with certain people and is not as strong in other people.
What about the whole midichlor?
We're not going there.
But also, yeah, so with Rey, maybe something that is also kind of interesting with her is that temptation. I guess maybe temptation in general is something that could be seen as problematic.
That she always has this temptation, but doesn't necessarily give in to it.
I mean, the temptation with her, like I said, is like who to find out more about herself.
Okay.
And so maybe that notion, like the fact that she wants to learn more about herself isn't a bad thing, but maybe temptation in general can be seen as a bad thing. Like,
but we did kind of already get those answers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. There's a lot to say about that too. And then another thing when she goes into the hole, and then there's that whole. I thought this scene was really weird because she snaps her fingers, like the whole mirror where there's like
the endless
It
reflections.
was cool, but like given that her parent, I don't know. In the end, that whole part, wasn't so fond of that part with the whole like she snaps. It was just too weird for me.
Yeah.
And if it's too weird for me, that's saying something.
Okay, so Walrus thing perfectly fine, but mirrors, that's where
Walrus
you draw the
teats,
line.
yeah, mirrors,
Okay,
snapping in mirrors.
just so I know where the line is. Okay,
We'll have a meter or like a scale on a scale of walrus teats to snapping. What is okay?
It's a really messed up mirror or a really messed up scale. All right.
What else do you have to say about her?
I guess is it fine for me to go on my rant now?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, here's the rant.
We unlocked. You unlocked.
Mentioned,
the rant.
her. People complain that she's the Mary Sue character that she just kind of is able to do things that she shouldn't. Just kind of. And I really do agree with that. Like, I mean, as people, when faced with that criticism, people say, "Oh, well, Luke," you can say about Luke that he had things that he probably shouldn't be able to do. But I feel like Star Wars, the original trilogy, kind of was able to explain that. Like, he was already a really good pilot, and then now that he's strong with the Force, that explains why. Okay, maybe he's able to blow up the Death Star in Episode 4. Then in Episode 5, all of a sudden he's able to, use some Force powers. He pulls a lightsaber to him in the beginning.
But he struggles with that.
He struggles with it, but he's able to do it. And people say, well, he's never really had any training. But the thing is, there's like a gap in time. I don't know if it's ever explained how much between Episode 4 and 5, but you can kind of be like, okay, well, maybe he was training by himself. Maybe the Force Ghost Obi-Wan was helping him. You can explain all away these criticisms with that time gap. Whereas in Force Awakens, I mean, she has no idea that the Force exists. And the entire Force Awakens thing, I don't know what the timeline is, but I feel like it happens over a couple days or a week.
Yeah.
And she's able from finding out about the Force to then use it to manipulate people's minds, perfectly almost, and also beat Kylo Ren in a lightsaber duel.
In The Force Awakens, it's more of a problem that she's... If you think it's a problem, it's more of a problem that she... And maybe problem is not the right word here. That she's so super skilled with all these... Because she does more with the Force, and I think in The Force Awakens, than... Because in The Last Jedi, like, more of what she does is maybe... Like, she doesn't do anything that's, like, so, like, oh, well, like, how did she do that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting something. But...
I mean, she lifts the rocks at the end, and I guess my biggest thing would be that she beats all these elite Snoke guards in a fight with Kylo
that was so
Ren.
cool that I forgot.
It was a cool scene, and maybe I'm
and
willing
she
to...
did technically have help. I mean, there
was like 6, 8
it was
of
like
them,
3 on 3. It was like 3 on 1.
Yeah.
2, 3 on 1. Whatever.
We're still talking about the... Okay.
We're going to keep going back. No.
Yeah.
I will say, in Jason's defense... Well, I'm not so... I don't have so much of a problem with her beating Kylo Ren at the end of Force Awakens, but... The biggest one for me is where she influences the mind of the guard.
Yeah.
Like that whole part. Because it's like, even for someone who's strong with the Force, like, how do you even know that you can do that?
You can do that,
Like,
yeah.
I feel like...
She hadn't been reading a manual up
I feel like someone...
maybe I'll try this next time I have a chance.
Someone who does the Jedi mind tricks, like, because Obi-Wan does it in, like, one of the first movies,
in
right?
A New Hope, he does it on the Stormtroopers.
Like, he's a Jedi master. Like, he's learned that you could do this.
Yes.
Like, who told her that you could try to do this to someone? Like, that was the worst one for me, but... Personally, I'm fine with her beating Kylo Ren. Yeah. But I don't know if we'll get into all that. But anyway, go.
And they try to explain her beating Kylo Ren by saying that, okay, Kylo Ren was wounded. But again, if...
He was also torn... Like, he had just killed his father. People say, like, that...
Mentally, he wasn't there. But I think those arguments kind of go away with that throne room fight scene where it's like, well, maybe she never really used a lightsaber before she fought Kylo Ren. And then maybe say, well, she was really good at this bow staff thing or whatever it was. Like Napoleon Dynamite, I don't know. But again, like never used a lightsaber before, like completely different weapon, and even so, like random smuggler girl on Jakku, I don't feel like she should be able to go up against Snoke elite guards who aren't.
They are elite. They should be elite.
They should be elite, but I mean,
they end up being disposable.
Maybe they have that same stormtrooper training. I don't know. But yeah, again. If there was a time gap between Force Awakens and Last Jedi where you could say she was training or something, but you get the impression that Last Jedi takes off as soon as Force Awakens ended, and then Last Jedi takes place over the course of like 2 or 3 days.
She does have a lot more training with the lightsaber over the course of this movie than she did in Force Awakens.
So I'm not going to go on any longer with my...
But he can.
I can.
Trust us, he can.
He knows.
I'm slapping him on the wrist, making him move on.
I think that's all I want to say about that. I like her overall, but I just felt like there was ways they could have avoided it. Like if she hadn't always known she had the Force, and like maybe since she was little had always tried different things with it.
Yeah,
that could have explained a lot of that.
Like
and made
maybe
it go easier.
And she had she had heard of like some stories or legends while she was on Jakku of like and she had some idea of what it was. But like when she uses her powers for the first time, it doesn't seem like she doesn't know what she can do with it, but she's still able to do things like that. I don't know.
I just feel like, that would have made more sense overall if her character arc. It would explain away like how she's able to already do this. She's been training by herself for years. That's why like she's still unrefined and needs the official Jedi Master training from Luke. But explains why she's able to do some of the stuff she can already.
Good points. Yeah, so I think there are some definite questionable actions that she does that it's like how can she do that? But overall, again, I do forgive a lot of it, and I do think she's fine.
All right, should we move on to
the best of all? If you thought that was a rant. Oh, we just started really high, and then as we go through this podcast, we're just gonna start devolving into like. By the end of this, he's gonna be screaming about the bombers.
Hey!
Okay.
Don't make me go there already.
Okay. Oh yeah.
I'm already have to do a rant about the next one.
I shouldn't provoke. Okay.
Okay, maybe this instead
Rant
of calling
number 4.
it random guys, this podcast should just be ranting guys, or one ranting guy, and the other guy sits there and listens to it.
Yeah. Okay. This is one where I'm definitely more on board with his rant. This is the Finn and Rose storyline. I don't know. I want to talk about Finn. I like Finn a lot. I like where he goes because let me say this briefly. Like Finn as a character, because we'll get into the whole Finn and Rose thing in this movie. Finn as a character I like because in the first movie he's all about, I guess you could say, survival. He leaves the First Order because he's I guess you could say a good person, or at least he's not a horrible person because he doesn't want to commit these atrocities.
People,
yeah, so he leaves the First Order because he doesn't want to be a part of that. But from there, so that's, I guess you could say that's a bold thing to do. But from there, he's all about himself. He's all about saving himself until he meets Rey, who he develops like a big, strong friendship or connection. Yeah, a relationship, whatever. And that's great. That's really great. I like their interaction in The Force Awakens. I like how they really build that friendship. And then, when they get to Maz Kanata's world or whatever, he's about to leave and he wants Rey to go with him because he really does care about her. And so that's a strong character like thing to look at. It's like Finn is someone who's more about himself and the people he cares about in like his, I guess you could say, his inner circle, rather than being like some noble like hero,
white knight hero.
Yeah, and that's kind of where he goes in this movie. But ignoring like what we're about to probably get into, in The Last Jedi, Finn, he does in the beginning, he's about to escape, which is consistent with The Force Awakens. He wants to get away. He only cares about himself and Rey, the people, again, who he's most close with. By the end of the movie, he's willing to sacrifice himself for this bigger cause, which is cool. I think, sure, it can be also a little cliche, but I think that's somewhat satisfying as an arc for him, where he starts here more selfish, and then by the end, he's willing to think of more people.
Of the cause overall versus just him and Rey's survival, or even just his survival.
And then there's Rose.
And that's all we have to say about that. No, I agree with what you said. He did have a great arc overall. I do like Finn as a character. But
with that being said, I'll say I like Rose too. I think as a character and as an actor, there's a lot of potential there, but
we'll agree to disagree. I mean, I have no problem with the actors overall. I think she played the character great. I just hate the character, Rose. But I guess, we have the criticism. We have this same criticism, most people probably have is...
You probably expect this.
The whole kind of like Finn storyline just felt like it really played no part in the movie.
For me, specifically, the whole Canto
Bite.
Bite. From when they leave, or when they develop the plan to go to Canto Bite, until they are betrayed by the guy who they brought back from Canto Bite.
What are the chances?
Like, none of that was, in my opinion, necessary at all.
Not at all. And a movie that already dealt with pacing issues being too long, that we already said, the first hour and a half felt really boring.
Tone issues.
They could have completely cut the Finn and Rose storyline out. I don't know, you have Finn be in stasis that whole time, or just have him hanging around with Poe the whole time, not leaving. And they still would have ended up at the same part, or same place they were.
They were, from the beginning of this movie, the rebellion was like just in shambles and like completely, I don't know, behind or whatever.
And so I understand, people saying, well, heroes don't always have to succeed, and you can have, storylines that fail. And I understand that. I have no problem with them failing. The problem I have is it's already a long movie. First hour and a half is extremely boring, and you decide, let's keep this in here, where you could save 30 minutes, solve so many of the problems movies' problems just by cutting out that Canto Bite storyline.
Like the goblin trying to put coins in BB-8 was stupid.
Yeah.
The freeing the horse
foxes, whatever they are.
The forces will... No, that doesn't work, because like fox and a force, but...
No, not in the Star Wars universe. Can't use that.
Like the whole scene where they're riding on them is like... Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Now he's
Who's the one ranting about this now? Yeah, I especially like the end where
she's like, go, be free.
be free, and they're like,
She doesn't say be free, but she says go.
Go. Get out of here, you big dumb animal. Sorry, that's SpongeBob references.
We'll get in.
Stay tuned for our SpongeBob podcast. But yeah, when she's they let the animals go, and then they're like, even if we die here, this is completely worth it just to save the animals. It's like, well, as far as you guys failing here means the death of the rebellion, and you're fine that you got to save some horses when all your friends and the entire rebellion and First Order is winning. You're fine with taking the small victory and letting the horses go.
Because there's another really. I'm trying to look for the best word for this. Well, I'll just say the facts. So they get imprisoned because they parked in the wrong spot.
Yep.
And then they just so happened they don't find they find the guy who they need, but they never talk to him. They happen to find someone who can do exactly what they need in the same exact cell as they are.
Yeah.
I when I first saw the movie, I thought that DJ, the guy who Benicio del Toro's character, the guy who comes back with them, the hacker, I thought he was the one they were looking for, but they were just like mistaken on who they were looking for.
That's why
I thought he was the actual one they were looking for, and which it still would have been cheesy because they just happened to end up in the same spot as him, but it would have been a lot more forgiving than they need one guy, but then they get arrested, and then they just so happen to find another guy who can do the same exact thing in bed next to them.
Yeah. That sounds kind of weird. But no, I agree 100%. Yeah, and I feel like sometimes people try to explain to me, it's like, well, it's the Force doing all these things.
Sure,
and
that's a cheap.
End of the day, it's just
you could say that for everything.
Lazy writing, trying to explain away all these coincidences.
I agree.
We're able to accept it, once or twice, but when there's several times every movie, it's. Yeah, you just can't anymore.
This will be maybe one of the few times you'll hear me say this, but I avidly didn't like this whole part. If it's not clear, I did not like it.
Is there anyone who really liked the whole Canto Bite?
I can't imagine there was. I mean, it was the tone of it was also off. It was like, is it supposed to be? This seems like it's supposed to be more silly and like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Another thing we talked about was they're trying to add in a lot of social commentary with Canto Bite.
Yeah.
Talk about the whole
seems like it.
People benefiting from war, and that's why these things go on.
I find that
a while.
interesting. I find that worthwhile to explore.
Definitely, but again, we just say it felt forced.
Yeah,
like everything else.
And it's like in storytelling, as far as commentary goes, like social commentary, if you have to be blatant about it, it's not gonna work. if your first goal is to make a commentary on something, you're already messing up. Like, you should tell the story and let the commentary kind of, I guess, evolve from there.
Flow
if that makes
naturally.
sense. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to do this part just so that these characters have something to do in this movie. We're going to make them go to this movie because they have to, or this planet because they have to look for some guy. And, this is a good opportunity for us to explore these issues.
These issues, yeah.
Again, if that's the purpose of it, it's not going to work. It's fine to have social commentary. I'm not opposed to that, but if that is the reason that you're making them do this, which you can argue it is or it isn't, but I don't think that works.
Yeah. And last thing I want to say about the Finn Rose thing.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily the kiss part, but
well, it kind of right.
That part though is they're trying to go and destroy the super weapon
at the very end.
I forget the planet's name. Crate.
Who comes up with these? Okay.
I don't know. So they're riding those kind of like pod racer things almost off towards the Empire super weapon that's going to blow up in their base and will allow them to destroy the resistance. And Poe, obviously they're under a lot of firepower, or they're under the Empire's firing at them, and they realize they're not going to make it. So Poe orders them to fall back.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say we're Finn.
Oh, yeah. And then Finn, keeps on going, and that's where his story arc comes into comes around as he's goes from being selfish to willing to sacrifice himself to save the resistance. And I thought with the whole Canto Bite thing, I thought, okay, they ran out of stuff to do with Finn's character, so they're just going to try to give him a good way to go out, kind of like they did with Luke. But then instead, they have Rose at the last second come in and
crash into
him. And what she says to him was, we're not going to win by destroying what we hate. We
fighting for what we love,
protecting what we love, something like that. And it's just like, it's kind of a cool line, but at the same time, you don't win by letting the First Order super weapon blow up your base and let them kill all your friends either.
I'm gonna save this guy that I kind of like, but leave the risk or leave everyone else to get blown to smithereens.
She saved her love interest at the cost of the fate of the galaxy.
The potential cost of it. I mean, they didn't. No one else died there.
I mean, somehow they escape, being right next to the enemy lines, and then luckily Luke shows up to save them. But at that point, she just screwed over the entire resistance to save the guy she loves. So.
And plus, it's like, okay, she's.
I'm supposed to like a character that does that. Am I?
Jason sure don't.
I'm not
the logistics person. Of it. He's speeding towards it. She and Poe kind of fall back, and he's speeding towards the ship. And then somehow she's like able to like go around in enough time, fast enough to come on the side, and crash into his ship at whatever speed. The logistics
did not work out at all.
That was my big thing. Is like, okay, she fell back, but she was able to kind of like go faster than he was going to come around.
So he's already going as fast as he can.
And not only that, but again, she crashed into. But again, I think if Finn had actually died there, because I thought he was going to, I was like, oh my God.
Definitely.
That would have been very powerful. And I like Finn. I would prefer if he does make it to the last movie, which he does. But if he had died there, I think it would have been very
truly
effective.
Epic. Yeah.
But nope.
Nope.
So I think there's a lot of potential with Rose and with the actor who plays her, but I just don't think she was. I don't find that she was really necessary. You could also argue, though, that in the beginning, her sister. We see this character would spend a lot of screen time with the girl who is trying to drop the bombs that she can't, and then she, sacrifices. Well, does she? Well, she dies. She dies blowing up the ship, and it's her sister, right? And then so there's some weight there because it's like, okay, well, we got to see firsthand like a sacrifice that someone who we didn't know made for this bigger. I don't know.
Yeah.
You could argue that. And the effect of that is that Rose maybe is developing as a person or a character as a result of losing her sister. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just grasping here. But I'm trying to see the positive in it. Final question. Would you rather have 30 minutes of Finn and Rose on the casino planet or an hour-ish of Anakin and Padme in the secluded Naboo retreat?
This is the worst game of Would You Rather ever. 30 minutes versus an hour? Why do I actually want to take the hour of the
Oh my God.
I just hated Canto Bight so much.
Oh, wow.
And maybe the tragedy of the second
Dark Plagueis the Wise? Sorry.
The trauma of, the Padme Anakin stuff from episode 2 has passed long enough that I'm willing to take that.
It's been a while since you've seen that.
Yes, it's been a while. When I first saw episode 2, I liked it, but again,
me too. Because I was a kid. So I didn't know any better, and I liked it.
And all I remember was the awesome fight scene with all the Jedi at the end.
Yeah.
First time in a Star Wars movie, there's like more than one Jedi fighting at a time, and it was awesome. But then you see it now, it's like, oh, there's this love story. So,
actually,
you have to wait 2 hours before you get there.
Listening to what they're saying. Okay,
moving on.
We should be moving on. Poe. I like Poe a lot.
I do.
All right, next. No, he's great. I like the actor. I like the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of conflicted about Poe.
Sure you are.
Okay, say about what you like about him.
Okay, well, I think Jason's going to get into this too, but I do think that his arc is satisfying in that it is an arc. At least there is some development there. The fact that he starts out as a guy who's reckless and impulsive, and by the end he seems willing to take on something of a leadership position, which cool. Okay, good. Okay.
Yay.
I don't have too many problems with him, so go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest problem is his sense of humor. Like, I like it. It's kind of my sense of humor, but again, I just feel like it feels out of place. And in both Force Awakens and Last Jedi, one of the first things we see is him, doing his wisecrack. I just feel like it'd be better served in the middle of the movie instead of like the first thing we're introduced, or one of the first things we're introduced.
Yeah, where he's like paging, or what does he say? He's like,
I'm on hold for Admiral.
Yeah, General Hux.
General Hux. Yes. So I don't know. I just feel like it went on for a while. But my main thing I don't like about Poe is, as much as like Rey, I feel like is the Mary Sue. I feel like Poe is like the male version of that. I don't know what that's called. Whatever that is, we'll just call him overpowered. OP, if you will.
OP.
His OP-ness is great.
Whoa.
Okay, moving on. No, just because in Force...
Just to be clear, he said OP-ness. OP-NESS. Like putting the adjective OP as a noun. Okay? Okay, write that out.
Yeah. And we're done. No, is that yeah, in Force Awakens, in that one battle scene, when they're over the forest planet, you see him like single-handedly destroying all the fighters. I mean, I know there's other resistance fighters, but he's like the one doing all these flips and stuff and destroying like all the fighters on his own.
I agree.
And in this one, you see him taking on like an entire. I'm completely blanking on what the
Dreadnought.
Dreadnought. There we go. I was gonna say Dragnaught. That's totally not correct. The Dreadnought. You see him taking on the Dreadnought and like a whole wing of fighters on his own while destroying all the turrets. And at that point, it's just, why does he even need anyone else? He just seems like he can do everything on his own. He can just take on the entire First Order on his own. And again, yeah, I don't know. As much as I feel like, Rey is doing a lot of stuff she probably shouldn't be able to, Poe even more so. He does.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, he's not even Force sensitive as far as we know. He's just this amazing pilot who can do all this stuff we've never really seen other people do.
And I think to be somewhat more in line with Jason's point here, I am far less interested in Poe when he's in a ship, when he's flying a thing. I don't know, what do you call those?
X-wing?
When he's flying an X-wing, or when he's flying something. I'm far less interested in him.
I do like his character more.
I'm in fact not interested at all when and that's something I don't think I ever care about ship battles in Star Wars, like where they're flying around and shooting things. I've never cared. I've never found those to be interesting to me. Yeah, so I'm so far less interested in him when he's in that position, and when he is, as Jason points out, OP and like killing everything and not running the risk of dying or whatever. Yeah, so just to put that.
Yeah, it just feels take away like from the seriousness of the movies. Like he's off kind of doing these like cartoony things you expect like a cartoon hero.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fair.
And yeah, I just wouldn't want to see those in a Star Wars movie. I guess he can do cool things. He can be this really great pilot. Just make it a little bit more realistic. I guess.
No, that's great. That's a great point. I like that.
The other thing we need to talk about him is his little spat with Admiral Holdo, Vice Admiral Holdo.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that.
You want to go first?
So the biggest complaint is the way it plays out, right? He sees this lady who's kind of taken over the leadership position, and they're completely at odds with one another, and he stages, I guess you could say, a mutiny and tries to overthrow her, you could say, because he doesn't know the plan, when in fact there is a plan put in place by her and I believe Leia, I don't think Leia knew about it. Okay, but Leia's on board with it at least, because like at the end when Leia's back, she's like, good job, girl.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing.
You go, girl.
But anyways, so yeah, I mean, Poe, okay, the big question here is like, why didn't she tell him the plan? That's like the thing you're going to hear everyone say. So sure. Well, you got other stuff to continue on from there, or other things
besides what everyone says about she should have told him?
Yeah, because I mean that's like the thing, right?
That's basically the thing. Yeah, I don't have anything new to offer.
And there's a lot of justifications. We're like, oh well, maybe because of this and this, and it's fine. It's fine. That's not so much of a problem to me. But I do agree that it can be seen as a problem that she didn't tell him.
Yeah,
because it ends up becoming potentially like a big mess.
It does, and
like that could have gone so badly if. I don't know, if Leia had not woken up at that exact moment and shot him.
I know.
Sorry.
And just that, like I said, Poe being like this cartoon hero almost. I mean, also that whole kind of thing kind of felt like a cartoon resolution where they knock out Poe, and then like when they're evacuating, Leia's just like, I kind of like him. And Admiral Holdo's like, I like him too. Yeah,
I know.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, I don't know. It just felt like this kind of feel good. They have to put a feel good ending on all that. And
yeah. I mean,
I like the dynamic where they're kind of making Holdo as like this kind of antagonist almost.
Yeah, I thought that's where they were going. I was like, oh shoot, is she like kind of trying to like infiltrate them? And like I was like, that'd be interesting to see if she was actually something of an antagonist, and she
not necessarily like a villain, like working for the First Order,
sure,
just a really bad
his
decision making.
Sure, okay. And yeah, I would have preferred that as well, but in the end it's like it all comes around really well. Where it's like, oh, sorry we didn't tell you. Sorry I shot you.
Sorry we had this all worked out all along. And
yeah.
the last hour that you guys been doing stuff, you didn't have to do it.
Another thing I'll say about Poe, going back to his kind of stepping up to being more of a leader, is I do appreciate, I think I like these parallels where it seems as though you could say like Poe and Rey and maybe even Finn, but for sure like Poe and Rey are going to be some kind of leader figures in the last movie. And there's a parallel there where it's like the First Order now seems to have this leader figure, Kylo Ren. It's like the young characters have, well, quote unquote, young characters have risen up, as in these big leadership positions where all of the previous leaders are now all gone, right? Like Leia's dead now, Luke is dead.
Well, Leia's still alive at the end of the movie, but
that's true. Well, she's likely
not
not
gonna
gonna be
be
there
in it, yeah.
in the other one. So it's likely Leia's gone, Luke is gone, and then Snoke is gone. So it's like the old leadership is all, and Holdo is gone as well. So
we
like,
still got Chewie though.
that's true. Maybe he'll come up and show us off.
I'd actually love to see that in episode 9. You know, the entire like all the meetings.
He's
with
like
the
giving
resist-
speeches.
Oh, Disney, if you're watching, I will
Forgive it
forgive
all.
everything. Just make that happen.
Hilarious if they're just like supposed to be serious. But yeah, so it's interesting to see that in these two big factions, the old leadership seems to be gone now, and the new must fill these roles without a whole lot of guidance. Rey doesn't have any more Force guidance. Kylo doesn't have any more Force guidance. Poe likely doesn't have any guidance, as you know. So it's like it'll be interesting to see what that happens.
Is Poe now the de facto leader?
I'm assuming so, but you know he might not be. I mean, because they make us believe that the rebellion is very small now,
like 20 people.
Yeah, and again, I'm assuming Leia's going to be gone. Holdo is dead. Akbar is gone. I mean, who else? Who else? They don't show anyone else who is a leader, although they never showed Holdo before, and she's just, oh, here's this. I don't know. Okay, I guess that's all we'll say about him. I mean, well, is there anything that you really want? We kind of talked about this.
The love and relationships.
Do you want to say more about it?
We can just talk about it very, very quickly.
Yeah.
What we think is going to happen with the relationship drama in episode 9, where that's going.
There's clearly some seeds for potential relationships.
And some drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the potential ones that we found were Rey and Kylo.
Yep.
Rey and Finn.
Yep.
And Finn and Rose.
Yep.
Possibly Luke and the Walrus.
My main thing with this is that I feel like we don't need there to be a relationship, but there likely will be. If there is going to be some relationship, I would prefer that it's Finn and Rey.
Yeah.
Because they've established a connection between them. They met in The Force Awakens. They really quickly developed a friendship or some kind of a bond there. They very clearly care about one another.
Yes.
And in The Force Awakens, they're both really kind of driven by like one another. I mean, Finn more than Rey, perhaps, but
they have these
Finn,
kind of cute little interactions.
And Finn is thinking about her consistently throughout the Last Jedi, and Rey, you know, I guess she has. You know, they reunite and they hug. It's really sweet and everything. So I would, if there is going to be a relationship, I would prefer it to the two of them because I feel like it's already kind of established. But I don't think there needs to be any relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't think we gain much from that, but it's going to probably happen.
Yeah. Like I agree. I'd prefer to see Rey and Finn together, mostly because, you know, the other pairing, Rey and Kylo, I'm hoping Kylo ends up being just like a straight up bad guy, and, you know, Rey has to kill him. And I we've established really hate Rose. So that leaves Rey and Finn.
I don't hate Rose as much, but I don't want her to end up with Finn. She doesn't need to end up with anyone.
No, and like you said, like I'd be fine if there's no romantic pairings at all. But if there are, I wouldn't mind that. I don't mind if they do or don't.
Good.
No particular feelings one way or the other. It's just don't end up with Rose. Don't end up with Rose.
no particular feelings. You just can't end up with Rose. Another thing, I'm interested in the connection between Rey and Kylo, just because they're both strong with the Force and like, you know, blah blah blah. But I don't want that to go into like them being. It would be. I feel like it would be weird if they ended up together because like there's a lot of different emotions between like there's respect. There's kind of like this eagerness to try to convert the other, and then there's also a lot of hostility, especially now that she turned him down and she left.
Right.
I mean, he blamed Snoke's killing on her. Like. That's pretty...
You're the one who turned on the lightsaber.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he told General Hux that it was Rey that killed Snoke, so that word's probably going to get out on the First Order, and everyone's going to think that Rey killed the Supreme Leader.
Rey's going to be most wanted #1.
Final thoughts. I am really excited to see where they're going to go. I know a lot of people... I've seen people say, like, oh, I don't care where they go at this point, like because a lot of people are upset, but I'm not upset. I'm willing to go with this. I don't think I'm so much of a Star Wars fanatic that I'm super upset with the choices they made here, and so I am willing to see where they go because I'm interested in most, if not all, of these characters. Every single one of them, I think, has qualities that make them interesting. The less space battles, the better.
Yes. Yeah, opposite end of that, you're the creative writing major. You're looking at this from a non-Star Wars fanboy perspective, from the writing perspective. Me, on the other hand,
he's a butthurt Luke fanboy.
Butthurt fanboy, as we talked about
earlier.
earlier. Got to hear all my rants today. I like all the characters in this one. I obviously will see episode 9.
Yeah.
Obviously going to be excited for it. I didn't hate the movie. Like I said, when I first saw it, I liked it, but after coming back and thinking about it more critically,
You like it less.
I like it a lot less.
All right, well,
Thank you guys for listening to us.
Yeah.
We enjoyed this. I did not think we'd go on for this long, but I underestimated my power to rant.
Yeah. So thank you for watching. Yeah, this was fun to do. We're going to do a lot more. We like a lot of the same things as far as movies, video games, TV shows, even books. We're going to look towards books. But there's another show that we really love, Avatar: The Last Airbender. We might do something on that. Well, no, I think we want to. We will do that.
Imagine several episodes on that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure when this podcast will release or if anyone's even listening to this at all. We appreciated this. Let us know your honest feedback about all of this.
And we'll try to make corrections to any future installments.
Oh, yeah. And we'll become more organized as we go once we kind of get into the habit of this. If we come up with a cool title for our show and different segments maybe. Well, either way, this was fun. Thank you. Have a great morning, noon, or night.
Guess I don't see you. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yep, I love that quote.
Truman Show. Take care, everyone.